Yeah. So maybe Albert, I'll formally introduce you if you don't mind.
No, not at all. And can you promote me as a presenter or enable screen sharing for me? You're doing that.
Believe you should have that capability. Yep.
It says host disabled participant screen share.
Tim, if you don't mind making Albert a host, that'd be appreciated.
Yes, you should have the co-host privileges now.
Perfect. Wonderful.
So Albrecht is the managing director for Data and Applied Intelligence. He's also the Pittsburgh office managing director for Accenture. Albrecht is also a member of our advisory committee for the Super Analytics Challenge, second year running, and has been very instrumental in our direction and construct of the Super Analytics Challenge. So Albrecht, thank you for being here together with our students today. It's a privilege.
No, it's my pleasure. Thanks for inviting me. This is, again, I thoroughly enjoyed this last year. This is one of the things that I'm incredibly passionate about, giving back to the community, helping our students, helping the next generation. So I'm thrilled to be here, and thanks for the opportunity. Are we tracking on the screen? Can you see things okay?
Yeah, we can see it. Yeah,
fantastic.
Perfect.
So hey everyone. So Chris and team asked me to come in and talk a little bit about storytelling. So I'm sure you're sitting here thinking about, okay, what's this all about? This gray-haired guy coming in, and how we tell stories, and what does this have to do with data and food insecurity and so forth? But give me a little latitude here, and let's get into this, and I'll share some thoughts. So just quick introduction. So Albrecht Powell. I'm a bit quirky in things I like to do. I like to wear a kilt. I do have some Scottish heritage. I climbed Kilimanjaro in a kilt to help give back to the community, and it was a big charity climb. Got to teach some African school children. Rode my bike across Alaska, 500 miles in 6 days to help fund vaccine research. Proposed to my wife underwater while scuba diving. Native Pittsburgher, love giving back to the community, love academia. I've had the opportunity to guest lecture with some classes at CMU, at Columbia, and certainly at the University of Pittsburgh, which is my favorite. And then by profession, I work at a company called Accenture, and I lead our data practice. So that's a little bit about me. I'm going to take a minute and a half and share with you who Accenture is, just so you know if you haven't heard of us. We're one of the largest technology consulting firms in the world, and our mission statement is to deliver on the promise of technology and human ingenuity. It's a very interesting way to position a mission statement, because our goal is to try and help change the world to be more successful and help change our clients and to give back. Right? Bunch of stats, $50 billion company, 670,000 employees, huge. We do cool stuff like R&D and research and ventures and labs, and then large scale delivery and help company with strategies, all that stuff. I lead up our data space, so excited there. And there's a reason I'm sharing this, so again, bear with me. But the thing that I'm most proud of and most excited about the firm that I work with is this slide and what we do to give back to the community, right? We have something called Accenture Development Partnerships, which around the world helps do things like this hackathon, right? We help make and drive change, real world societal, economic, and environmental change. And some of the stats on the bottom, our sales numbers, the number of clients, that's all interesting. What really intrigues me is 18 years on Working Mother 100 Best Companies as a consulting firm, right? Human rights, corporate equality index, diversity, world's most ethical companies. These are the things that we anchor our firm on, and are things that are important to us, and why so many of our people work here. So why did I share all that? And why are we here to talk about storytelling? Well, a lot of people view something like this hackathon as a focus on data, and it is, right? But think about how I introduced myself, right? I didn't start with, oh, I'm a consultant or I'm a managing director at Accenture, I run our Pittsburgh office. I talked about something that's really passionate about me, right? Giving back to the community and the fact that I'm kind of weird and quirky, right? Wearing a kilt, climbing a mountain in sub-zero temperatures. Think about how I talked about my own company, right? I could have talked about all the client work we do and all of our numbers and how, you know, what our sales percentage was last year. But I talked about something that was important to me, and I think to the world and to our clients, and that's how we touch people's lives, right? And that brings us to a bit of a question around this whole concept of storytelling. And, you know, ultimately, why are you here today? Right? And it's an interesting question, right? Because there's a set of goals that have been laid out for the Super Analytics Challenge, right? First and foremost, to help the Greater Pittsburgh Food Bank, right? There are quote unquote our clients, they're our customer, right? They've quote unquote hired us to come in and help use data and analytics to help them help people, right? That's pretty cool. And, you know, provide a meaningful, rich learning experience for all of you as students, connecting with some of us, right? Senior level executives and technologists out in industry. So you get a pulse of what's going on in the real world and tying this to the real world. And then, you know, supporting all the partner organizations that are directly touching this. So, you know, when you look at your personal motivations, right? Each one of you here are for a reason, right? Some of you are, hey, this is a pretty good resume builder. I do a lot of hiring for Accenture. Feel free to call me. I love seeing stuff like this on a resume, right? You know, maybe it's you heard somebody did this last year and hey, it was cool. Maybe it's, you know, you wanted to impress your professor. Maybe you want to help change the world. Maybe you want to help one family. So before you start in with this hackathon, I want to challenge you to really think about why you're here and what you want to get out of it. None of these are right or wrong, right? I'm not going to judge you if this is just a resume thing, but I want to challenge you that if you think about what your motivations are and how you apply those motivations to the work you do every day, it's going to change your outcome. If you put this with a focus on a resume builder, or if you put this with a focus or a lens on wanting to help a family, it changes the work that you do. So let's talk for a minute about hunger, right? I think you've heard, you know, a couple of presentations about how big a deal this is in the world, right? There's a common thought out there when we talk about hunger, and it's like, oh, that's Africa, right? It's them, you know, the parched, dry deserts and you know, oh, that they're hungry and whatever, right? We don't think about it in terms of us, right, here at home. But these statistics, you know, as I started, you know, helping the team with the planning of this, I was truly humbled and sobered. And I actually had to stop when I started reading this. 1 in 8 families in America are hungry, right? I mean, think about that for a minute. Think about your neighbors, right? And I know, you know, it's a different socio-demographic area, but, you know, here it might be 1 in 20 families in your neighborhood that are hungry. But that means there's another neighborhood where it's 6 of 8 that are hungry, right? 38 million Americans struggle with food insecurity. How in the world, with a country like America, can this happen? It's staggering, right? You know, 60% of households led by older Americans, they have to choose between buying groceries or paying a utility bill. I've never blessedly been faced with that, right? I was a poor college kid. I had to make choices. I never had to think about where my next meal was coming from, right? I can't imagine what it must be like trying to figure out, do I default on my mortgage? Do I not pay for heat this month? Or do I buy some food for a child, right? So, you know, the reasons why you come to do this is very important as you tell your story. And if you think about the case for a minute, you know, you think about, oh, this is all about data and analytics, and we're going to do the best regression modeling and our values, and I've got the best Python expert on our team. That's part of the solution. But the other part of the solution is, what's your high impact question going to be, right? We gave you some that you can pick from. That's great. I challenge you, are there others that you could come up with? And you remember, if you want to win the hackathon, right, or win the case, there's 3 judging panels, and you could have pretty mediocre analytics. But if you in the first judging panel come up with a compelling enough story and a compelling enough high impact question, and maybe your regressions don't your data analysis doesn't come up with the optimal answer or the best answer, you could still win this by coming up with new and innovative ideas. So how you present your case is very important. When we go to clients, I just literally before this got off a call where I have a unbelievably technical expert, but they had struggled communicating basic concepts to the client that we were meeting with. And all of their brilliance was lost, right, in the fact that they couldn't tell a story. So as you do this case, think a little bit about who your stakeholders are, okay? And you know, again, Greater Pittsburgh Food Bank, right? That's absolutely one of our stakeholders. That's our client. But in the real world, when you are working with a client or a customer, your stakeholder group is actually a little broader than that, right? Here, think about your professor. Think about your resume, right? Think about the person that's embarrassed to go to the food bank for the first time. One of the things I did before coming into this case was I actually went down, and I do a lot of volunteer work, and I went down to one of the food shelters. And the first thing I did was I just sat outside for an hour and watched people go in. And there were sort of 3 different groups of people. One seems like they go there probably every day, maybe every week. Very confident. They go in and they come out with either a hot meal or they come out with some groceries, right? But what was interesting is the families that came up and they walked past the door, right? And then they turned around and walked back. And then they looked in the window. And then they very timidly went and opened the door and walked in. And I could just imagine it's somebody that has never had to do this before, has never had to put the humility up to say, I need help, right? That's one of your stakeholders. What about, you know, I go back like a few years when we used to go to the Benedum. But you know, the annoyed theater goer or the annoyed person walking out of an office building downtown and seeing somebody sitting on the sidewalk asking for food. Are they one of your stakeholders? How about the hospital, the press, the police? How about the child you see getting on the bus at the end of the street in your neighborhood? How about your neighbor? I was shocked to find, we live out on the west side of town, Oakdale, McDonald, Imperial. You know, not the hoity-toity parts of town, but I wouldn't say, you know, demographically struggling. But there's people in my community out here, my neighbors, that are struggling, and I never knew it. And it took this pandemic for them to come out and ask for help. So my point is, you know, as you build the case, think about who those stakeholders are and think about how you're going to impact them with whatever high impact question, with whatever data analytics you use. Okay, so, you know, how are you going to change the world, right? And you have a chance to do this. You have a chance to change one life, one family by the work you do out of this, right? So the biggest challenge that I always find in approaching something like this, or any work problem, client problem, customer problem, where do you start, right? You need to understand the problem. I'm going to be pretty bold here for a minute and challenge all of you. If you don't know anyone who's hungry, if you've never volunteered at a food bank, if you've never taken time to read the story of a family, and you know, the families that are hungry, these aren't all down and out drug users. They're not all people deadbeats that they can't find a job or they're not willing to find a job. These are our neighbors that because of COVID, they lost their job and they don't have an income and they're trying to figure out how to pay their mortgage and their bills and they can't afford food. Think about those stories. And if nothing else, read and understand the problem, right? Where is the help most needed, right? We oftentimes think of, oh, it's in the poor parts of town. We oftentimes think of it's in the urban cities. I was surprised to find out that the biggest issue is in the rural parts of the country. And you think, well, there's farmers there, they make food, they've got livestock. Well, they're some of the hardest hit, right? That impacts the analysis that we do, right? Think about what your hypothesis is for how you think you can help, right? Again, you've heard from Lauren and some of the others. The Greater Pittsburgh Food Bank, Feeding America, they've got a team of data scientists, of analysts that are trying to figure this out. So they're pretty smart. That infograph that Chris brought up, that was pretty impressive. So as you think about the high impact question, think about what's the question they're not asking. What's the data set? What's the hypothesis that may or may not be right, but you come up with an idea that may be different from what anybody else is thinking. So again, when you think about what the food bank or what people need most, think about what this high impact question is going to be. And maybe it's something totally different. Maybe it's something where there's not even all the data that you need to be able to support this, right? Don't be afraid to fail. People can win a case like this by coming up with a really innovative hypothesis. And they do a set of analytics and they haven't come up with, that just doesn't support my hypothesis, but I know it's true, but I don't have enough data sets or I don't have enough access to it. That can still win, right? So don't be afraid to fail. Don't just pick something because, oh, I have the most data, right? But that's up to you and your teams. Crunching numbers is easy, but knowing what to crunch and why, that's the challenge. Okay, so as you approach this case, think about how you're doing this, right? Again, is the provided questions, are they good enough, or do I want to do something different? Is there other data I could use? Can you go and create your own data sets? Could you go interview 10 or 20 people and provide a data set there? Well, may not be statistically overly accurate, but could be some interesting data points, right? And then think about the type of story you're going to tell. Is it descriptive to describe what happened? Is it predictive about what will happen? Or is it prescriptive to try and figure out how do you optimize the outcome for the future? That's going to be very important as you both determine your high impact question and you do your analytics or analysis, and then how you end up at the end telling the story and making a set of recommendations. Okay, so how do you tell your story, right? And that's what I wanted to spend a few minutes talking about. Storytelling it's a bit of an art, right? It's this interactive art of using words and actions to reveal the elements of a story while encouraging the listener's imagination. So think about movies. Being stuck here at home, I've ended up doing a whole lot more Netflixing than I probably should. And Netflix does a great job at recommending stuff to you, right? The banner up at the top, and here's what the movie is. And it's like, oh, this is cool. And one was recommended last night. I went and I watched it. Great, interesting. I spent, an hour and a half. And at the end of it, I'm like, that's an hour and a half I'm never, ever going to get back. Right. And I went and I looked at the reviews, and sure enough, the reviews were exactly what I thought. There was an interesting concept to the story, but it just dragged on, right? We've all seen movies like that, right? There's no plot. It's not exciting. It just plods on, and you think it's like, okay, it's going to get good. And it's like, and nope. And then it's like, all right, the big action thing is going to come. And nope, doesn't happen. And then at the end, you're like, what did I get out of this? So thinking about a movie or a book is a great way to put storytelling into context. Okay, so what are the elements of a good story, right? And again, when you talk to your customers, your clients, or you present this hackathon case, I would conjecture that maybe 60% of a successful pitch is the content that you have. 40% is the way you tell the story. Think about Shark Tank for a minute. If any of you watch that show, I love that, and hearing how people do pitches. Some people will come in and their pitch is so darn good. The fact that their product is a joke. It takes the sharks a while to get over that, and they really have to probe into the product because they were so mesmerized with the story about how good the product is or how it would be applied. And in a lot of cases, the sharks sit there and say, well, here's how I think we could improve your product, because they saw that passion and that excitement behind the pitch. You could have the best product in the world, but if you're not able to market it, sell it, pitch it, convey the benefits of it, get people excited about buying it, you're not going to sell it, and you're not going to get people to invest in it. Okay, so what are the elements of a story, right? So the beginning, middle, end. Simple, right? We all know that, right? We all, I think, hopefully most of you know the Star Wars series, Luke Skywalker and young Jedi, and the middle of the story, it goes through and then it ends, right? But sequentially looking at a story, yeah, kind of mundane. The way I look at it is character and conflict. Luke, the young Jedi and trying to find himself, and that finds out about the Force and the dark side and everything, and the struggle, the compressor thing that squishes them, and the swinging across the chasm with Leia, and then fighting for the future of the Empire, or not the Empire, the whatever the good guys were, and then at the end, the satisfying outcome, right? The Death Star blowing up, right? That's what makes a good story. It's about introducing a main character, right? What's their conflict? What's their struggle? And then with a satisfying outcome. And you're like, Albrecht, what the heck are you talking about, right? We're doing food insecurity. This isn't Star Wars. This isn't blowing up the Death Star. This is absolutely blowing up the Death Star. Who's your character in conflict? It's the 6-year-old little boy or girl that's getting on the bus, that the only meal that they're going to have today is the school lunch that they have at school, because it's funded through the school. And oh, by the way, they're not going to school this month because of COVID, so they're not getting that meal. That's the struggle that they're facing. And the parents, what do? How do they feed their child? They don't eat so they can give food to their child. The satisfying outcome is the great work that you're going to do on your analysis to come up with a new and innovative idea, so that little 6-year-old child actually has an apple and an orange and some food to eat, right? That's the satisfying outcome. That's your story. That's how you've got to approach something like this hackathon in a case like this. So what determines whether a story is good, right? The audience. Like, what? Well, you can have the best story in the world, but unless people are engaged, unless you get people hooked, unless you get people that can resonate with that, your story is meaningless. So you've got to think about the audience. And that's why I talked so much about the stakeholders, right? How do you get your audience connected from the very beginning? Make your story their story, right? How do you relate to that main character? When I think of food insecurity, thinking about, some farmer in Iowa, it's like, okay, I feel bad for them. Thinking about, somebody in an inner city and they're hungry. It's okay. Yeah. Okay. I feel bad for you. How can I help? Thinking about the 6-year-old getting on the bus in my neighborhood. Oh my gosh. Suddenly that's now my story is their story. Their story is my story. That's how you build those kind of connections, right? So 4 steps to good storytelling. And again, remember, we've been, hired by the food bank to help provide insights around this, right? So, number 1, we always want to tell. We always want to tell people what we know. We want to sound smart, right? But what they want to do is they want to make sure that we understand. They want to hear that we get the problem. We understand the problem. We embrace the problem. And we think we've got some ideas to help, right? The second is, what we want to communicate, right? Letting the client know why you're there, right? going into a pitch, again, in my consulting world, I have not sold anything to a client in my career, ever. I've gone into a client and said, I see your challenge, I see your problem, I think we can help, and here's an opportunity for us to help. And that's an important perspective, right? How we communicate, think about it from their perspective. Think about their needs, not how great I am and what I can show you. So this isn't about how great your statistical analysis is. Even in the second judging piece, whenever we're looking at the data, right? This isn't about how great you are. It's about something you did in a box that drives insights that's going to touch somebody's life. And then, whoops, wrong way. And then lastly, how do we endear ourselves to our client, right? And this is where empathy comes in. Making them understand that we get their problems, we understand their problems. We've helped other people with these kind of problems, and we want to be part of the solution. A lot of times when our clients go and hire a consulting firm, they hire us as much based on our credentials, our capabilities, how many types of projects we've done, our references, as are the people that come into the room at like an orals and sit down and talk to them. Do they feel like they can relate to us and that we really understand them and we're there to partner with them as opposed to selling them something? It's a different way to position your thoughts. Okay, coming down to the home stretch here. So delivering a strong story. So great US financial services client success story. I'll give you the next 15 minutes to go read this, right? This is how a lot of slides, frankly, look for, our clients for a Shark Tank pitch or what have you, right? A whole bunch of words. It's a lot of good detail in here, but oh my God, I couldn't get through the situation challenge before I just started drifting off, right? There's a little known secret when you do presentations. Okay, you ready for this? Ready for this? Yeah, free consulting here, right? Slides are free. I continue to hear as we go through a deck, 3 minutes a slide. So if you're doing a 30-minute presentation, you can't have more than 10 slides. I have, I think, 36 slides here for a 10-minute presentation or a 30-minute presentation. And we're going to get through them, right? Slides are free. This is that same slide, and all the details on here obviously changed, but that earlier slide, right? This is the same information that was on that gorily detailed slide. Market leadership's under fire from the CEO and the board. Stock prices are down, new market entrants. Oh my gosh, big problem. And then, here's the client, right? And here's the stuff that we did, right? We designed an architecture and defined a strategic capability, and we did stuff, right? This is the approach that we took. Here are the outcomes 4 months later, right? Revenues exceeded costs and 700 million and 47 million and lots of good, exciting numbers, right? Literally all of the detail that was on that ugly, gory slide here is summarized in these 3 very simple, more graphically appealing slides, right? So think about how you present. And believe it or not, as we judge this case, as your clients judge you, as your customers judge you, the way you deliver your message is very important. PowerPoint skills are really important. Okay, so, to summarize everything that I've shared with you, right? Storytelling with sides. Hook your audience in early. Make this story their story, right? Focus on their why, right? What is it that they need and how you think you can help? Putting slides together, right? That's part of this hackathon. It's not just about your data model, right? It is indeed about how you present this solution, and we're going to judge you on that. So think about how you position this, right? And then your delivery, again, be memorable. Albrecht Powell, right? The one thing you're probably going to remember about me is this really crazy, weird old guy that came to talk to us about storytelling, and he likes wearing skirts or kilts, right? So again, something memorable, something unique, and be empathetic. It's about them. It's not about us and you. So with that, I challenge you all. I'm excited that you're taking this on. This is going to be a lot of work. over the next few weeks. And I know you've already started this, but I challenge you, use this as an opportunity. Don't do this just as a resume builder. If you do, so be it, right? But you've got an opportunity to touch lives. Take that opportunity, and I hope you have fun with the case. Thanks very much for your time. Thanks, Chris, for giving me a few minutes on here. I'm happy to take any questions if anybody has any. And Chris, I think you're on mute, and good grief, I hope I wasn't on mute for the last time.
No, I was just saying thank you. Round of applause for Albrecht, for being here with us today, for the really insightful, inspiring presentation that he's made. Someday I'll be up in Kilimanjaro. I don't think I'll be wearing a kilt to do that. It's cold up there. Kudos to you. I do want to open this up. If anybody has any questions for Albrecht, and I encourage you to ask questions, please, activate your video, raise your hand, or you can add it in the chat function as well. And, Albrecht is also on our judging panel. He's going to be on the final concluding presentation session at the end. So it can certainly give a lot of insight there as well. So if you have a question or a comment, you can either chat it or you can unmute yourself and ask it directly. I know that Andy had to take off. He was going to a sales pitch, and he wanted me to convey to you that he's going to use some of your techniques right away in the sales pitch.
Too funny.
I had a question related as we wait for others to ask questions. So, sure. From your perspective, Albrecht, being a part of last year's Super Analytics Challenge, and Accenture actually helped fellowship some students, and we were able to introduce hand washing stations with their support to the Hot Metal Bridge Community Faith Organization, which is a part of the Pittsburgh Food Bank Network, which has led us into this topic of food insecurity and hunger. From your perspective, what are areas that really intrigues you, about this topic and the partners that we have a part of this, in sort of the different areas about the high impact questions, specifically as it relates to, intrigues you of how we can bring ideas to the Pittsburgh Food Bank that can have that lasting impact, that we're the impact we're aiming to make.
Yeah, no, Chris, it's a great question and a great thing to muse on. I am our son is very much into open source software, right? And I assume you all know all about that. But the idea is you get software out there and you get a bunch of people to collaborate on it. And I keep challenging them. Ren, how do you make money with open source software? Right? You're giving all of your IP away. And it's an ongoing debate, right? And I don't think you should be doing that. I think you should do everything yourself and then go out and sell it and make, millions, right? What's the $1 million idea? And they kept coming back to me and saying, if you get a lot of people together and share thoughts and ideas and collaborate on something, 2 + 2 will always equal more than 4, right? And then you figure out, once you've got an idea, then there are ways to market it and sell it and make money on it. The reason I say that is, again, the Pittsburgh Food Bank and Feeding America, they've got statisticians, they've got data scientists. This is a lot of what they do every day, right? So how is a bunch of, what do we have, 7 teams, I think?
Yeah.
Of, 5 or so folks, 35 folks, how are we going to make any difference in this, right? You'd be surprised, because their data scientists have been there for 3 years and they're looking at the problem with these eyes. And what we're challenging you to do is come in and look at the problem from different perspectives, right? We're not all experts in food insecurity. We're not experts in the data sets that they have. But by gosh, somebody's going to come in here with some innovative thinking about, maybe we need to approach the problem from a different perspective. Let's look at the root cause. Let's look at the sources. Let's look at, the people that are donating to support this. all those different perspectives coming in. And you know what? If we get one idea out of this super analytics challenge, I don't care about who wins, right? Great, you can win, but if somebody else comes up with one idea that can touch one life, we've all made a difference. And it's not about the winning team, their idea making a difference. It's all of us coming together, challenging each other, challenging our thinking, hearing what others are doing. And just the fact that you all showed up today, right? That's what makes a difference. And that's why things like this are so important to me. I'm so excited that we've got this suite of partners, that have come together to help support this. And this is a passion for all of us. So I hope it is for you as well. I don't know if that answered your question, Chris.
Yeah, sure did. We had another question that came in from Samora, and she asked, for those of us who plan on going out into the community to talk to people experiencing food insecurity and possibly collecting our own data and material, how should we go about asking for their permission to use that material?
I am not the person to answer that. I think that's something that someone from the food bank would be better to answer. I've always believed that, and again, I don't know what the legal and the requirements are, but talking to people is innocent and innocuous, right? I would not go and talk to my 6-year-old getting on the bus and put her picture up on my presentation and say, Mary, who, lives at this address and whatever, is food insecure, right? That's not cool. But I do know that 6-year-old, they do live near me, and me talking about that person, I am perfectly comfortable doing that morally and ethically, and I think they would be okay with that as well. Again, masking data as appropriate, but getting some stories, making them into pseudotypes or making them into concepts, I think is a very real thing to do. And if you're asking people questions and you're using that to drive some statistics or some aggregated data, again, as long as you're not personally identifying someone or, but using a persona, I think you're okay.
Yeah.
But no legal advice has been provided there in this particular answer.
No, but great response. Not identifying an individual by name, not identifying an individual by location, for example, respecting their privacy.
And also respecting that, while they're there, this may be the most embarrassing thing that they've ever done in their life.
Mm-hmm.
And being sensitive to that.
Yeah, and that goes back to your story about observing people coming in and out of this food pantry, and the first, the one family with a couple kind of going in the door, looking in, coming back. Yeah, I mean, this is it's a difficult step, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Especially for a parent. Well, Albert, I don't see any remaining questions come in. I would like to thank you again for your time and, being here with us, sharing your experience. Is truly an honor that you spend time with us and have dedicated as much time and energy and thought into this challenge as you have. We're sincerely appreciative of all that you do for the Super Analytics Challenge and also the University of Pittsburgh. Thank you, Albert. No,
it's my pleasure. Thank you. And again, happy to answer any other questions offline if anybody has it. I'm sure Chris, you'll get all of our contact info out to everyone.
Yeah.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Have a great day.
You too.
Take care, everyone.